Hi, dreamers. I'm Percival.
And I'm Vivian.
And we are your hosts of the Dreamscape Chronicles.
If you would like to share a story for us to tell or come on the show and share it yourself, we welcome all dreamers to contact us at dreamscapechronicles@outlook.com. Our Patreon is now live. Just search the Dreamscape Chronicles. We will also be putting a link in our show notes to make it easier to find. It's only $1 for Discord access, so you can join our growing community by chatting about the show, voting on polls, and sharing stories with others like yourself. At a higher tier, you will have access to our personal stories and more of our special episodes. But if you are looking for more content like that, Patreon is where you will find them. Now back to our regularly scheduled broadcast.
Welcome back, dreamers. We're here with episode 26.
I don't know, are you sure about that?
I'm not sure about anything anymore, honestly.
26 seems like a lot. Have we really been doing this for 26 episodes?
I think there's more.
I don't know.
I've lost track. This one's going out as number 26.
Officially.
Yeah. Yes, wait. Yeah, because vampires. Now we're doing werewolves, but not really werewolves, but werewolves. We only thought it was right since it's spooky season that we follow up some fangs with some claws. But not Santa Claus.
Nah.
It's too early to have that damn tree up. If you have your Christmas tree up right now, just turn the episode off.
We can't be friends.
Nope, I'm done. No. Burn it.
Yep.
No. Take that back. Don't burn your Christmas tree. It's technically more pagan than people realize.
That's very true. Most of the holidays are, though.
But yeah, we're gonna talk about moon madness and lycanthropy.
That's crazy.
And the reasons why I experience both of these even when we don't have a full moon.
Even on a new moon.
Wait. Okay, that's only for my therapist.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I don't think you can erase that.
Moon madness.
All right, so tonight we're starting with one of the oldest and most persistent ideas in human history. That the moon can make people lose their minds if their boss doesn't do it first.
Or traffic. Let's be honest. Or grocery prices. It doesn't take much these days, folks.
Have you seen the housing market? Or just live in Colorado Springs. Oh,
that'll do it.
But yes, moon madness.
Moon madness. The idea that once that big white circle hits its full shine, something in us just flips.
Exactly. By now, if you're listening to us, you more than likely know that the Latin word for moon is luna. And yes, I just told you that, and you've probably heard that on the past 500 podcasts. So congratulations. Now, where the word lunatic literally comes from is lunaticus, or moonstruck. Ancient physicians really believed that the moon affected the mind the way it affects the tides, pulling the fluid in the body, especially the brain.
So it wasn't a metaphor, it was a medical theory.
Pretty much, yes. The Greeks, the Romans, Galen, Pliny, even later physicians wrote about how fevers, sleepwalkings, and certain forms of madness seemed to wax and wane with the lunar cycles, and the ideas stuck around for pretty much forever.
Yeah. And even now you'll hear police officers, ER nurses, and paramedics swear that full moons bring more chaos.
There are, I've heard all kind of stories back and forth on that. Like, I've heard people speculate that that's true, and others that just dismiss it and say there's no substantial evidence.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things that you can't really read about in a book. You gotta experience it.
But yes, modern studies do kind of support that statistically, but culturally, it's still a living belief. And that says something about how deep the association runs. That light in the night sky representing both order and instability.
You can kind of see how it makes sense, because the moon changes shape constantly. It's the most visible rhythm in the sky, other than the chemtrails. People even track the moon before calendars. So if you're living by that rhythm, you start noticing patterns, or what seems like patterns, in human behavior too.
Absolutely. In pre-modern societies, everything was cyclical. Crops, sleep, fertility, even emotional states. The moon's phases offered a visible model for that. The waxing moon meant growth and attraction. The waning moon meant decline and release. It became a symbol of change, instability, and a representation of the pull between light and dark.
And that's kind of where the connection to madness sneaks in, because everything, or really anything unpredictable or uncontrollable, got assigned to the moon's influence.
And when we look to occult tradition, the moon represents the unconscious, the hidden self, the instinctual drive. Carl Jung later picked up on that idea, describing lunar symbolism as the reflective side of consciousness. Not the light itself, but what it reflects.
So when the moon is full, it's like the unconscious shining through. The stuff we normally keep contained starts showing itself.
Right, that's how some ritual magicians and alchemists understood it. They timed their work with lunar phases because they saw the moon as a regulator of subtle forces, such as emotions, imagination, psychic tides, and more. And the full moon as a moment of exposure when hidden things become visible. Symbolically, it's when everything peaks. It's also when, according to folklore, people were most vulnerable to transformation or possession.
This is where lycanthropy, or the idea of werewolves, starts to overlap with moon madness, right?
Right. In early medical writings, lycanthropy was actually a clinical term. Still is. Greek physicians described people who wandered at night, acting like wolves, often around the full moon. They called it a kind of melancholy or mania, basically a mental illness before it became a supernatural myth.
That's fascinating. Just like being moonstruck, something we think of as pure legend started as something seemingly so much more legit, like a medical diagnosis.
Yeah, but over time the idea merged with folklore. The moon became the trigger, the symbol of the moment when the human being crosses into the animal state, when pure instinct overrides reason and logic.
You can almost hear the psychology in that. The moon lights up the night, but it also illuminates the stuff we may not want out in the open.
That's the key point. The moon doesn't just represent madness. It represents what's hidden, becoming visible. It's a mirror of the psyche. When it's full, you can't hide from what's reflected back.
And if you can't process what you see, that reflection might feel like madness.
That's the psychological version of turning into the beast. The part of the self that's been suppressed surfaces all at once.
So for ancient cultures, the full moon wasn't just light. It was more like a confrontation.
Yes, a time when boundaries blurred. That's why so many rituals, myths, and even later crimes got associated with full moons. It was a period of heightened emotion and liminality, or the in-between. You guys know what this is by now, as we have discussed on past episodes.
Many past episodes. But anyway, in that in-between is where folklore lives best.
That's so true, which brings us to one of the most chilling examples of that liminal fear made real, the story of the beast of Gévaudan.
Wasn't that like the French werewolf?
Oui.
I just imagine a man sitting in a cafe, eating his croissant, sipping champagne, when the moon comes out and he just starts howling. He probably transforms, but still is wearing a beret.
Oh, mademoiselle, there is not enough human heart on my croissant.
Oh!
I don't know what's happening, guys. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That shit was weird, but we're gonna keep it.
I'm not deleting that shit. But yeah, for the most part, it was a creature that terrorized entire villages in the 1700s, and whose killings seemed to echo the same lunar rhythms we've been talking about the whole time.
Dun dun dun! Anyway, next we're gonna trace that story. How an entire region convinced itself that a beast walked among them, and how that belief tied directly to the moon's mythology.
And how the story helped shape the modern image of werewolves itself. But there's a much older story that we can talk about here.
Ooh, like an appetizer.
Yes, indeed. I'm talking about the story of Lycaon and Zeus. I'm sure there's multiple ways to say the name, but that's technically the Greek pronunciation, Lycaon. It's not just a myth about arrogance or divine punishment. It feels like something deeper, like a key, an origin point for this whole idea of the werewolf. A man slipping into the skin of civilization and becoming something else. Something wild. He tries to trick Zeus, crosses a line, offers him human flesh, hint his own son. And that act alone is more than defiance. It's like he's reaching for forbidden space, trying to see behind the curtain of reality. Touch something beyond human limits, so to say. And then Zeus sees through it immediately. Of course he does, because the gods, especially Zeus in this story, this kind of arrogance isn't a threat. It's a misunderstanding. Lycaon thinks he can prove the divine, but all he really does is reveal his own nature. And so Zeus turns him into a wolf. That's the moment that echoes through everything. That transformation, man into beast, it's not random. That wolf isn't just a punishment, it's a mirror. The wolf is raw instinct, hunger, survival. It's everything we repress to seem human, but it's still us. And maybe that's the real horror or the real truth. Like, becoming a werewolf isn't about becoming something else. It's about becoming what you've always been underneath. Almost alchemical, really. A breakdown. Strip away the ego, the illusion of control, and what's left? The animal, the shadow. Lycaon was forced to wear it, live it. He becomes the thing inside all of us. Not gone, just exposed. And then Nyctimus, the son, the sacrifice, he comes back, but different. Because resurrection in these stories is never simple. It's always a transformation. He's touched death, been remade by it. And that cycle, death, rebirth, it's the same cycle the wolf represents. The moon, the hunt, the wild rhythms of the earth. But Lycaon's story doesn't just end in shame. He goes on to found Lycosura, a city tied to the raw power, this divine wilderness. And the games? Those ancient Lycaonian games, they weren't just sport. They were ritual, trials, maybe ways to commune with the chaos he unleashed or became. It's all there, the primal, the sacred, the terrifying truth that to find the divine, you might have to lose yourself. You might have to go through the beast. And maybe that's why lycanthropy always is not a curse, but a revelation. The wolf isn't something foreign, it's us, without a mask. And the myth just shows what happens when the mask gets ripped off or suppressed.
Oh, Zeus. You funny god, you. That's so Greek of you. Turning people into animals.
Turns himself into the animal.
All the time. Alright, so before we get to Gévaudan and all the historical terror, let's rewind a bit because the whole werewolf thing didn't start in France.
Yep, lycanthropy does seem to appear in some of the earliest mythological records.
So even back then, the idea was that becoming a wolf wasn't random. It was potentially a punishment for moral corruption.
In my opinion, within the story, transformation is both divine judgment and exposure.
I gotcha.
The wolf symbolizes what's savage, unrestrained, the raw instinct beneath the civilized surface. That theme repeats throughout Europe, potentially where the idea of it being a curse comes from.
And the moon eventually got woven in as the trigger for that exposure.
Yes, the connection likely came through two paths. First, the moon's long-standing association with lunacy and altered states, and second, its role in ancient magic and timing rituals. If you look at grimoires like the Picatrix or Claviculus Salomonus, you'll find that lunar phases determine when spirits can be invoked, when metamorphosis or transformation rituals are performed.
So in magical practice, the moon wasn't just symbolic. It was kind of like a clock or like a schedule for power.
Yeah, and if you did these things on the wrong timing, bad things more than likely happened. So,
Oh, I bet.
ancient astrologers.
Mic drop.
Yep, so the moon's cycle marks the ebb and flow of subtle forces. The Key of Solomon, for example, directs practitioners to begin works of invocation during a waxing moon and to perform banishing during the waning phase. The full moon was reserved for acts of manifestation and sometimes for shape or glamour magic, what later occultists called transmutative operations.
And that's where we see the overlap, because the magicians controlled transformation versus the werewolf's uncontrollable one.
That's a good observation. In esoteric thought, transformation under the moon was meant to be intentional. The magician changes state, symbolically or spiritually, to align with lunar power. But in folklore, the same process happens against the will. The moon takes over.
Right. You could almost say the werewolf is the failed magician.
Yeah, in a way. Or cursed one. But yes, the magician without mastery, essentially.
Right.
So someone open to the lunar current but unable to contain it. That's a thread you'll find in several medieval sources.
Have you an example in the back pocket you could pull out for us?
I suppose. There's a 15th century text known as the Book of St. Cyprian. It's a grimoire that circulated in Spain and Portugal, full of prayers, spells, and folk sorcery. It includes a warning about performing certain rituals under the open face of the moon, because that's when the animal spirits roam unbound. The implications is that if a magician isn't properly prepared, those forces can enter them instead.
Kind of sounds a lot like the old belief that people could catch lycanthropy or be overtaken by it.
Pretty much. That belief wasn't metaphorical to them. In Northern and Eastern Europe, particularly among the Livonians and the Balts, people describe shape-shifting as a physical reality, but also a kind of ecstatic trance. The shaman or sorcerer might journey in animal form, often under the full moon, to battle spirits or thieves. Think skinwalker almost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense. And the church, of course, later framed those accounts as witchcraft or demonic possession.
Yes, the church flattened a wide range of ecstatic traditions into heresy. What might once have been seen as a spiritual journey or magical transformation became evidence of a pact with the devil. And the moon, with its nighttime connotations, was easily recast as light of deception.
So when someone claimed they could turn into a wolf, or even just that their spirit did, it wasn't a metaphor in their world. It was like a lived experience.
Precisely. Take the Norse Ulfhethnar, and I apologize to all my Scandinavian ancestors if I murdered that word.
I mean, it sounded good to me. What does it mean?
Well, so it's kind of like wolf coats or like wolf shirt or wolf skin. It's kind of
Okay.
the concept of berserkers.
Okay, I got you.
That's a whole different rabbit hole. But
Another day.
these were warriors who entered trance before battle, channeling animal ferocity. Their ritual often took place at night, likely under lunar light. Though the sagas don't always say it directly, the transformation was psychological, but deeply real to them.
It's kind of like a controlled possession, like a sanctioned form of losing yourself to the animal.
Yeah, and again, that's the magician's path, deliberately entering an altered state. But by the time we reach medieval Europe, that fine distinction between voluntary and involuntary transformation had disappeared in popular understanding.
And the moon remained the constant symbol, the thing that activates that change.
Yes, because the moon is consistent and inconsistent at once. It changes predictably, but it's always changing. It became the perfect emblem for transformation and instability. In magical texts, it's associated with water, reflection, illusion, all qualities that lend themselves to shapeshifting.
That explains why even in the Key of Solomon, the moon's planetary correspondences involve spirits of dreams, illusions, and just change.
Correct. In that framework, the idea that certain nights and lunar hours carry more power trickled into folklore. So when strange things happen, illnesses, sudden violence, sleepwalking, or animal attacks, the full moon was the easiest explanation.
Probably because it was already the symbol of everything unpredictable. Or at least that's what I'm thinking.
Yes, and this combination, ancient ritual timing, pagan trance traditions, early medical theories, all merged into the werewolf idea we recognize today.
And then eventually that mix produced real hysteria because people were accused. I mean, they were even tried and sometimes executed for being wolves in human skin.
And the fear wasn't only moral and religious, it was ecological, even political. Wolf attacks were real threats in rural Europe. The moon added a psychological layer, the idea that those attacks weren't just nature, but nature possessing humanity.
See, this is the perfect thing to set the stage for Gévaudan, because that's where all those fears collided.
Right. In the mid-18th century France, a mysterious beast, dozens of deaths, panic spreading through parishes, and a public trying to explain in both supernatural and scientific terms. It's the moment when folklore, faith, and early rationalism meet head-on.
And once again, the moon becomes a suspect.
So the Beast of Gévaudan wasn't just a monster story. It was a mirror of the collective psyche. And like all mirrors, it reflected whatever the culture feared most.
And maybe what it secretly desired, too. So strap in and join us in South Central France, 1764. Rolling hills, dense forests, and villages so small they barely warranted names. It was a place where the modern world hadn't quite arrived yet. A world still stitched together by superstition, prayer, and the fear of the wilderness just beyond the door. And then the killings began. The first reports came from the region of Langon, a woman found mauled near a stream, her throat torn open. The villagers said it was a wolf. Wolves were a part of life in the 18th century. They raided livestock often enough, but this was different. The wounds looked deliberate. There were claw marks, yes, but the head was missing. And the body had been arranged, almost like it was displayed. Within weeks, more bodies appeared. Children, shepherds, women walking alone to market. Always the same pattern. The attack came from nowhere, sudden and devastatingly violent. Some victims were decapitated. Others were said to have been partly eaten, though never fully consumed. Panic spread like fire through the region. People began locking themselves inside after dusk. Entire families refused to tend their herds unless armed. Villagers whispered of a beast. Not a wolf, not quite an animal at all. Witnesses said it was larger than any wolf they had seen, with a massive head, a reddish mane, and a tail as strong as a whip. Some claimed its eyes glowed. Some said it stood upright for moments before it leapt. The detail that lingered the most was that it seemed to kill for pleasure, not hunger. Over the next 3 years, between 1764 and 1767, the Beast of Gévaudan would kill more than 100 people, most of them women and children. The stories became national news. Parisian papers reported on it almost daily. The king himself, Louis XV, got involved, sending soldiers, hunters, even a professional wolf catcher from Normandy. But the beast kept killing. That's when the theories started to multiply. Some said it was a surviving hyena escaped from a nobleman's menagerie. Others swore it was a punishment from God. A few whispered darker explanations that it was a witch's familiar or a man cursed to take the form of a wolf under the full moon. The shocking part? The attacks seemed to correlate with lunar cycles. Parish priests recorded them by date, and several entries note the presence of the full or waxing moon. It might be coincidence, or maybe not. In a place where faith ruled and literacy was rare, the moon was a calendar everyone could read. Its full light made the countryside visible even at night, the perfect time for both hunting and hysteria. There are letters from that period, priests, nobles, even soldiers writing home, describing not just fear, but obsession. People claimed to see the beast everywhere. They found tracks that led nowhere, corpses that vanished by morning, and eyes watching from the trees. It wasn't only the killings, it was what the killings awakened. In 1765, a royal huntsman named Jean Chastel shot what many believed was the beast. The creature was enormous, far larger than a typical wolf. Its body was paraded through Paris, dissected, and then examined. And yet, within months, the killings resumed. By 1767, when Chastel finally killed another animal in the forest of Montmouchet, again claiming it to be the beast, the terror had already become legend. Whether or not the second corpse was truly the culprit didn't matter anymore. Gévaudan had been transformed. The people had seen something beyond explanation. Or maybe, as Percival would say, they had seen themselves reflected in the moonlight. Because what made the beast terrifying wasn't only the body count. It was that it looked almost human in motive. It stalked, it chose its victims, it seemed to know when to appear. It didn't just kill, it performed. That performative quality is what fascinated occult writers later. Eliphas Levi, in the 19th century, wrote that the beast represented the collective shadow of a people unmoored from faith. The moon, he said, was the mirror in which Gévaudan saw its soul devoured. It's poetic, but also psychological. A society caught between religion and reason, old superstition and emerging science. The moon became the theater light under which that struggle played out. And in that light, the line between wolf and witch, between madness and possession, blurred completely. The villagers of Gévaudan didn't just fight a monster. They fought the fear that something wild lived amongst them. Something that could be called out by the moon, or by hunger, or by the collapse of what they thought was safe. And that's the thread that ties Gévaudan to the broader story of moon madness. Every generation reinterprets it. From religious curse to psychological phenomena. But the root idea stays the same. The moon doesn't just illuminate the night. It exposes what's been hiding in it. So when people say the Beast of Gévaudan was a wolf, or a man, or something in between, the truth might be that it was all of them. And maybe that's why we still can't quite stop telling its story.
You know, I think Eliphas Levi had some Jungian in him.
Really? Or did Jung have a little Levy in him. You know, since Levy predates Young.
Right. Funny fact, actually, when Levy died, 2 months later, Young was born.
So are you saying maybe they're the same person?
So is Carl Jung the reincarnation of Eliphas Levy?
It could be.
So to continue our journey, where are we heading next?
Well, if the Beast of Gévaudan was France's nightmare, born of fear and blood, then Thys of Kaltenbrunn was the opposite kind of monster. He was a man who claimed he was a good werewolf. It's 1692, Northern Europe, the Livonian coast, what's now Latvia and parts of Estonia, still caught between old pagan customs and Christian rule. The witch trials are slowing down in Western Europe, but here, they're still very much alive. And into that world steps an old man named Thys of Kaltenbrunn. He's frail, nearly 80, living in a small village near the Baltic. Poor, half-deaf, and known locally for having a temper and a strange tongue. People whisper that he's been seen wandering at night, that he talks to animals, that sometimes he seems to know things he shouldn't. One spring, after a dispute in church, Thys is summoned by the local authorities. Someone accused him of sorcery and of being a werewolf. Now, in most witch trial records, that accusation meant a death sentence. You were supposed to deny it, beg for mercy, or name others. But Thys did none of that. He actually confirmed it. He told the court that yes, he was a werewolf, but not a servant of the devil. He and others like him were the hounds of God. According to Thys, 3 times a year, on the nights of St. Lucia, Pentecost, and St. John's Eve, he and his fellow werewolves would leave their bodies, transform, and descend into hell. Their purpose? To battle the devil and his witches, and to retrieve what had been stolen from the fields, the seeds, the livestock, and the fertility of the earth. In his words, they fought for the harvest. Thys described the journey vividly. The werewolves, he said, passed over rivers and through walls, entering the underworld in spirit while their bodies lay inert. They fought demons with iron whips and sticks. If they failed, the crops would wither. And when they returned, exhausted, they would celebrate, not with blood, but with bread and ale, like any Christian feast. The judges, naturally, were confused. They'd heard of witches flying to Sabbaths, but werewolves saving souls? That wasn't in any manual. So they questioned him again and again. Did he serve Satan? No, Thys said. The witches serve him. We serve God. They asked if he went to church. He said sometimes. They asked if he prayed. Of course, he said, but not to priests. We prayed as wolves. To the court, this sounded like heresy. But Thys wasn't defiant. He was certain, calm, almost proud. He told them the reason there were famine years was that too few werewolves remained, that without them, the devil would take the earth's blessings. He even named others who fought beside him, neighbors, villagers, but not to condemn them. He said their work was sacred. The judges eventually stopped asking theological questions and started asking physical ones. How exactly did he transform? Thys said he used a wolf skin, given by other werewolves years before. When he donned it, he said his spirit rushed forth like smoke into the form of a wolf. But now, he sighed, he was old, the power had faded, he could no longer make the journey. It's a rare thing reading the transcripts of that trial. You can feel the bewilderment of the court clerks trying to make sense of him. He wasn't lying, at least not in any obvious way. He seemed utterly convinced that he had done these things. And maybe he had, in his own reality. The judges sentenced him, but not to death. He was whipped and exiled, warned never to speak of it again. A merciful end by the standards of that time. But his story survived, one of the few first-hand accounts of a positive werewolf tradition in Europe. Thys's belief blended pagan roots and Christian symbols, but his logic was consistent. The devil steals fertility. The werewolves, as spirits of the old ways, fight to return it. They are protectors, not monsters. And in that single idea, that transformation could be divine, that the wild self could serve the sacred, you hear the echo of something far older than the church.
What's remarkable about These's case is how clearly it preserves the bones of shamanic practice beneath Christian reinterpretation. The notion of leaving one's body, traveling in spirit, and engaging in a kind of cosmic battle, that's textbook ecstatic experience. We find it in Siberian, Finnish, and Baltic shamanism. In those traditions, the practitioner takes animal form not as a punishment, but as a means of power and service. These, consciously or not, was describing the same structure, the descent, the struggle, and the restoration of balance. To the church, it was heresy. To modern psychologists, it's an archetype. In Jungian terms, These embodied the reconciliation of the shadow. The wolf wasn't his curse, it was his ally. He had integrated the instinctual side of his psyche, the same beast that others feared and repressed, and turned it towards creative purpose. That's what makes his testimony so psychologically advanced, even without education. He framed his inner world as cooperative, not adversarial. He didn't see the wild self as evil, he saw it as essential. And when we look at the larger pattern, from Lyconian's punishment to Gévaudan's hysteria, these stands out as a reversal. The moon's power, the animal within, transformation, all of it reinterpreted as service rather than corruption. He represents what the alchemists call conjunctio oppositorum, the union of opposites, the human and the animal, the sacred and the profane, the conscious and the unconscious, reconciled under the same moon. In other words, he wasn't insane. He was mythically sane in a culture that couldn't yet recognize that language.
These's story reminds us that not all transformations are dangerous, and not all madness is decay. Sometimes what looks like lunacy is just a psyche finding a different way to speak, in symbols, in stories, in wolves. And maybe, in his strange way, These was right. That the real battle for the harvest, for the balance between life and death, between reason and instinct, happens inside us first.
So let's take some time and transform our transition into some magical aspects of this terrific yet terrorizing topic.
That sounds tantalizing.
So when we talk about the moon in occult practice, we're not just talking about a symbol. We're talking about an operational calendar, a way of tracking energy, rhythm, and timing. The magician doesn't treat time as linear. They treat it as cyclical.
So every phase becomes a part of the work, a kind of clock for consciousness.
Exactly. Every major grimoire that deals with natural or planetary magic, from the Keys of Solomon to Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, places heavy emphasis on lunar phases. So like I mentioned, the waxing moon is associated with the increase and attraction, and the waning with decrease or vanishing.
Makes sense.
The full moon is the culmination point when what's been charged or invoked reaches visibility.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, it's less about superstition and more about patterns, working with predictable cycles.
Yes, think of it as aligning efforts with momentum. The magician believes the universe is a series of correspondences. When the moon waxes, the tides of subtle energy also wax. So you perform works of attraction or manifestation because it's building up.
Sure.
And when it's waning, those energies recede. So work on cleansing or releasing or breaking attachments.
So what about the new moon?
That's the void, the beginning of potential. In alchemy, it corresponds with Negredo, the black stage. everything dissolves so something new can begin. Many magicians use the new moon for introspection or planting the seeds of intention that grow as the moon waxes. So for gain, you would want to start at the beginning of a new moon while it's raising to a full moon. So technically, once the moon is full, it starts losing power.
I gotcha.
It starts pushing away. So
it's fully charged.
Yeah, and then it, goes through its cycle.
Depletes its battery of sorts.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Now, it's fascinating how this lunar cycle maps so neatly on a psychological process. Growth, manifestation, decay, renewal. Almost its own form of therapy.
It is. The old texts use different language, but the principle is identical. The Picatrix, for example, says that the moon governs all that is subject to flux and motion, meaning emotions, imagination, dreams. Those are the same regions modern psychology associates with the unconscious.
Which kind of explains why so many magical rituals involve mirrors, water, or reflection. Moon imagery is everywhere.
Yes, in fact, scrying, or gazing into a reflective surface for visions, is traditionally done under lunar light or with the moon symbolically present. The moon's reflective qualities become a tool for self-observation. You project intention into the reflection and read what comes back.
So the magician is literally using the moon as a mirror of the mind.
Precisely. In the Heptameron, there's instructions to consecrate a mirror or basin of water during the full moon so that spirits of air and water may show therein. Modern readers take that metaphorically, but it's psychologically sound. The reflection is the surface of the unconscious.
This kind of ties back to what you said earlier about Jung's view of the moon as the reflector of consciousness.
That's right. In Jungian terms, lunar work is shadow work. When a magician gazes into the mirror or performs a full moon rite, they're facing the contents of the unconscious, deliberately engaging with what's normally hidden.
So the lunar magician is doing on purpose what folklore says the lunatic or the werewolf does by accident.
That's an elegant way to put it. Both are touched by the same current. One integrates it, the other is overwhelmed by it.
I gotcha. So let's talk about ritual timing a little more. You mentioned Agrippa. How detailed were these instructions?
Very. Agrippa and later authors list specific planetary hours when the moon is favorable or detrimental. For example, when the moon is in Taurus or Cancer, its exaltation and rulership, it's said to strengthen workings of protection, fertility, and stability. When it's void, of course, magicians avoid major operations because the moon's influence is considered unstable, and this could potentially blow up in your face.
Fair. So even now, modern ceremonial magicians and astrologers still check lunar aspects before big rituals.
Correct, yes. And not just ceremonial ones. Folk magicians, cunning folk, the modern witch all rely on lunar phases. The grimoire of Pope Honorius warns that those who call upon spirits without the blessing of the moon call into the void and madness. It's a poetic way of saying timing matters.
That's why the full moon remains the most public face of magical practice. The night when covens gather, when intentions are spoken aloud.
Yes, the full moon is visibility. What was private becomes external. That's why most dedication rituals, oaths, initiations all happen under it. The practitioner stands fully seen before forces they're aligning with.
That's both symbolic and practical. You're illuminated. You can't hide.
Precisely. And in the psychology of ritual, the visibility creates accountability. You see yourself clearly, perhaps for the first time. The same reason many initiatory texts speak of the light of the full moon upon the initiate's face. It's recognition.
And when the moon wanes, that's when the magician releases, banishes, or ends what's run its course.
Yes, that's the cleansing half of the cycle. The exaltation after the long breath of creation. The Key of Solomon even instructs that tools used for darker work should be buried or purified under the waning moon so they don't retain residual energy.
Interesting. It's such a practical system, but also psychologically sound, like you said. You build, you express, you release, you rest. It's the same rhythm that nature follows.
And that's why the moon has been humanity's oldest teacher. It teaches change as a constant, but also rhythm within change.
You know, maybe that's why it's always been a mirror for the human mind. It's predictable enough to study, mysterious enough to dream about still.
Yes, every magician, every mystic, every poet, whoever worked under the moon was trying to synchronize inner motion with outer motion. That's the heart of occult philosophy, correspondence.
Which brings us to the question, what happens when science steps in? When we start measuring the moon's influence instead of feeling it?
That's where belief meets data and where the conversation shifts from ritual to neurology.
So that's where we'll go next. The modern lens, right? How much of moon madness survives in scientific observation? And what might still be true in ways we didn't expect? But before we move forward to science in depth, I think it's important we acknowledge the other half of the legend, the idea that the moon doesn't just inspire, but destabilizes.
Right, the old notion of lunacy. That the full moon provokes erratic behavior, madness, even violence.
And for centuries, it was treated as fact. Physicians from Pliny to Paracelsus argued that the moon could disturb the humors of the mind.
Indeed, even in the Malus Maleficarum, that rather unfortunate manual of witch hunting, there's a passage suggesting that witches are more active and more potent during the full moon because the fluids of the body are inflamed by her shining light. And that's quote.
That's part myth and part primitive biology too. They understood that the body's fluids responded to the tides, and the moon controlled the tides. So naturally the moon must influence the mind.
And that's sympathetic reasoning, the basis of all early natural magic, the human body as a microcosm of the cosmos.
But here's where science enters and makes things a little bit more interesting, right? Studies on lunar influence are surprisingly mixed. Some show no measurable increase in crime, accidents, or hospital admissions during full moons, despite popular belief.
Yes, the correlation tends to dissolve under scrutiny, what psychologists call the illusory correlation effect. People notice events that confirm the myth and ignore those that don't.
Right. It's narrative pattern seeking. We love a story that connects the heavens to our behavior.
Yet, paradoxically, other studies, especially on sleep, show a subtler pattern. In a 2013 study from the University of Basel, found that participants slept about 20 minutes less and had lower melatonin levels during full moons, even in controlled darkened rooms.
Which suggests that even if we don't consciously perceive the moonlight, something in our physiology does.
Precisely. That's where the ancient intuition wasn't entirely wrong. The moon may not cause madness, but it might still whisper to the circadian system.
Our bodies evolved under its light. The lunar cycle has been the planet's slow metronome for billions of years. It affects tides, animal migration, even coral spawning. Why not the rhythms of sleep and mood?
I mean, that's exactly right. The difference is that the magician personified that influence, gave it a face, a mythic context. The scientists measured it. The magicians experienced it.
So maybe the link between moonlight and the mind isn't about direct control, but about resonance.
Yes, the moon becomes a synchronizer. Not of crime or madness, but subtle biological and psychic tides. In that sense, both the grimoire and the laboratory are describing the same thing in different languages.
One speaks in symbols and the other in statistics.
Yep, exactly right again. And the truth, as usual, probably lies somewhere in between, in the conversation between them.
So when we watch the full moon next time, maybe we're not expecting madness or magic, just remembering that we're still part of a rhythm older than history.
And maybe that remembrance, that quiet acknowledgement, is really the spell the moon has always cast.
So we've traced the moon's shadow, from myth to madness, from wolves to mirrors. What's left, Percival? Is the question behind all of it, why does the moon matter so much to us? Why has it always been more than a rock in the sky?
Because it behaves like a soul. It changes, it disappears, it reflects light it doesn't own. Every ancient philosopher looked up and saw themselves, bright and dark at once. The Hermeticist would call it Luna Anima Mundi, the soul of the world. Alchemists used it as the emblem of the prima materia, the unconscious substance that must be refined. In their language, the sun was spirit, the conscious, the rational. The moon was soul, the emotional, the reflective. Each phase represents not creation of gold, but the refinement of self. This matches what Jung later called individuation, the integration of the unconscious into awareness. And Jung drew directly on alchemical symbols for that reason. He saw in the moon the emblem of the anima, the feminine principle of the psyche that mediates between ego and the deeper unconscious. To ignore it is to live half awake. To face it, to descend into the lunar realms of dreams, instincts, and archetypes, is to become whole.
That's definitely where the lunacy stories flip on their head. The person who loses themselves under the moon becomes the warning. The person who consciously enters the same state becomes the magician or mystic.
That's the difference between possession and participation. One is overwhelmed by the unconscious, the other makes dialogue with it. This is why grimoires so often instruct purification before lunar rites. Many, like the Key of Solomon, prescribes fasting and prayer before any operations. The magician had to be balanced and be ready to enter the realm without dissolving into it.
So even then, they recognize that the moon's light could reveal as much as it distorts.
Yes, it illuminates the shadowed parts, but only in reflection. It's never the thing itself. That's its danger and its beauty. The old magicians were early depth psychologists in a way. Their language was mythic, but the process was the same. To look at one's fears, instincts, desires without judgment, that's lunar alchemy.
And so the moon madness becomes a kind of rite of passage. The pull we feel toward irrational moods, dreams, or obsessions, those are invitations, not curses.
Yep, the moon doesn't make us mad. It makes us honest. It reflects what we already are, stripped of daylight's distractions.
So in that sense, Thies of Kaltenbrunn, the Livonian werewolf, was closer to an alchemist than a heretic. He faced the wild self and made it sacred.
I think so, possibly. He intuited the same truth, that the beast and the human must cooperate. That salvation isn't about rejecting instinct but transforming it. That's the lunar mystery in every age, how to let the animal within serve the soul instead of rule it. Maybe that's why magicians, poets, and scientists all keep looking up, because the moon is the oldest symbol of transformation we have, and of reflection. It reminds us that no light we show is our own. It's borrowed from something greater, refracted through our own landscape.
So in the end, the full moon is just a moment of recognition. It's the psyche saying, I see you.
Exactly, that's the real alchemy. Not turning lead into gold, but turning confusion into awareness, turning madness into meaning.
Maybe that's the best definition of magic we've heard all night.
And perhaps the most relatable one.
You know, Percival, I think after all this, I'll never look at the moon quite the same way again.
Good, that's the point. The moon's supposed to change how we see things, including ourselves.
We've gone from werewolves to alchemy, from biology to dreams, and in every direction the moon seems to hold up that same mirror. It's kind of strange. For something so constant, it never stops shifting.
That's why it endures as the archetype. The moon is transformation without destruction, a rhythm that keeps teaching impermanence in the gentlest possible way.
It doesn't shout, it just wanes and waxes over and over. Like it's saying, you don't have to be the same person all the time. It's okay.
It gives us permission to fluctuate, to rest, to rebuild, to fall apart a little bit. In occult philosophy, that's the essence of natural magic, to align yourself with cycles instead of resisting them.
So maybe moon madness isn't madness at all. Maybe it's just the friction between our linear lives and cyclical nature.
That's well put. And if we understood that better, maybe we'd stop being so frightened of our own changes.
It is comforting, actually, to think that when people centuries ago stared up and felt that strange pull, that same soft unease, they were feeling what we feel. It's still the same moon today.
Yes, whether it's 16th century peasants in Livonia or a 21st century insomniac checking their phone at 2 a.m. The sensation is the same. Something in us responds to that light.
And something in us wants to name it. Madness, magic, gravity, hormones. Whatever makes it feel less like mystery and more like meaning.
Humans can't help but mythologize what moves them. It's how we process the unknown. That's why every age invents its own moon stories to explain why we feel different when the night glows white. Mystery keeps the soul flexible. The minute we think we've pinned it down, the moon changes phases and makes us look all foolish again.
Absolutely. The moon has a wicked sense of humor. She's been watching us blame her for our sleepless nights and bad decisions for thousands of years. Literal centuries of humans saying, it wasn't me, it was the full moon.
A cosmic scapegoat with excellent lighting.
I think that's the real full moon ritual, making excuses. Joking aside, it does make me wonder if the moon mirrors the mind. Maybe all of this is just a reminder to look inward with the same curiosity we look upward.
Yes, the moon's lesson is simple. Reflect without judgment, illuminate without burning. Every phase, even the dark ones, has its place.
So maybe the cure for moon madness is simply to just let yourself wax and wane and not call it crazy. Just remember that transformation isn't loss. It's the way life breathes. Maybe we're all just learning to breathe with the moon again.
If you can't laugh under a full moon, you might be doing this whole spirituality thing wrong, or worse, you'll end up on someone's porch howling about it.
I think that's where we'll leave it. Under the same old moon, still asking the same old questions. May your transformations be gentle, your nights reflective, and your lunacies meaningful. Before we let you go, dreamers, let's just hear a little bit more from the whispers from the void.
Indeed, we'd like to thank all of our Patreon supporters, including Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic, Killjoy Kenji, and a big shout out to Douglas Batchelor at What Magic Is This podcast for letting us promote and drive all your patrons crazy. Including Natalie, Honorary Celestial Mage, for answering all my astrology questions. We really appreciate you. And for anyone who wants to get in touch with her, I'm going to link all of her information that she gave me in our show notes so that you can contact her.
Yeah, go check it out. She's Very, very cool.
So that'll conclude our Whispers from the Void.
Yes, but don't forget to follow, share, all the things. Because we potentially have a Halloween episode coming out soon, right?
Yes, we're very excited for it. So keep an eye out. And don't forget to check out our Patreon, where you can join our Discord and get access to episodes not released to the public.
Exactly. So get on there, get it going. But until next time, dreamers, keep dreaming and
join us in discovering what may lie beyond the walls of sleep.